Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder why sometimes even when you know something is important, your brain just doesn't pay attention to it? Or why other times something totally unimportant grabs all your focus? Today we're diving into a fascinating study about how our brains decide what is worth paying attention to, and how rewards, like money or tasty snacks, play a surprisingly tricky role in all of this. This paper asks a big question. How does the reward we expect from a location influence where we steer our attention, especially when there are other signals like visual brightness or pop-out effects competing for our focus? For a long time, scientists thought that if a place or a thing is linked to a reward, our attention would automatically be drawn to it, like a magnet. But what if it is not that simple? What if sometimes our brains might actually try to suppress or gate the reward signal if it is not helpful or even harmful for the task at hand? Imagine you are at a busy market trying to find a specific item. Your brain has to filter out all the noise, the bright colors, the moving objects, all that stuff is trying to grab your attention. On top of that, maybe you know one part of the market usually has better deals. Does that automatically make you look there, even if what you are looking for is in a quieter, less rewarding section? This is the kind of puzzle the researchers here wanted to solve. So, how did they test this? They designed a clever experiment using a visual search task. Think of it like a Where is Waldo game, but with even more specific rules. They had participants sit in front of a screen and look for a specific target. In this case, it was a bar with a dot in either the top or bottom. But here is the twist. The screen was divided into 4 quadrants, and one of those quadrants was secretly linked to higher rewards. So if you found the target bar in quadrant A, you'd get more points or a better snack than if you found it in quadrant B, C, or D, scroll in order to manipulate reward. One of the 4 quadrants was associated with high rewards, while the 3 remaining quadrants were associated with low rewards. Hanti-Kokyu, they also played with visual salience. Salience is basically how much something pops out visually like a bright red box among gray ones. They tested different scenarios. Sometimes all the bars on the screen were the same color and easily blendable, other times the target bar itself was the salient one, and other times a distractor bar was the attention. Grabbing one, scroll specifically, 3 salience conditions were used to operationalize the manipulation of stimulus-driven attention. Homogeneous display HD, all stimuli of the same color, salient target display STD, when the target was the color singleton, and salient distractor display STD, when one of the distractors was the color singleton. Tuku, the core idea was to see how these two things, the expected reward of a location and the visual pop, out of an item interacted. They measured how quickly and accurately people could find the target in all these different combinations. Scroll analysis of RTS showed a significant main effect of salience condition. Figure twin tuar kokyu, now for the exciting part, the results. First, they confirmed what we generally know about visual salience. When the target itself popped out, people found it faster and more accurately. Makes sense, right? If the thing you are looking for is the most colorful or stands out, it is easier to spot. Scroll salient targets improved search performance, while salient distractors hindered target discrimination kokyu. But here is where it gets interesting. When they looked at whether the target appearing in the high reward quadrant made people perform better, they found nothing. Absolutely no significant difference. This was a surprise. Based on older research, they expected people to be faster or more accurate when the target was in the high reward zone. Scroll the current results confirmed that salient targets facilitate search. Salient target vs homogeneous displays, and indicate that salient distractors slow down target discrimination, homogeneous via salient distractor displays. See also analysis of design 2 below. Nonetheless, contrary to previous findings, Kiss et al. 2009, Christensen et al. 2010, we found that reward did not significantly impact search performance, i.e. participants did not perform better when the target appeared at the highly rewarded bus, the low reward location. Kokyu, however, the story changed when they looked at the distractors, especially the salient distractors. Remember, these are the annoying items that pop out and try to steal your attention away from the target. They found something really unexpected. When a salient distractor appeared in the high reward quadrant, it actually interfered less with the participant's ability to find the target compared to when that same salient distractor was in a low reward quadrant. Scroll salient distractors at the high reward location interfered less with the discrimination of the task-relevant targets, reflecting gating mechanisms at the high reward location. Hankokyu, this is the opposite of what you might expect. You'd think a salient distractor in a high reward area would be super distracting. But here, it seemed like the brain was somehow gating or suppressing the interference from that distractor. It is like the brain's priority system said, okay, this spot is supposed to be rewarding, but right now, It has also got this distracting thing. Let's dial down the distraction here so we don't mess up the task. This suggests the reward signal wasn't automatically pulling attention, but rather being integrated and potentially suppressed if it conflicted with the immediate goal. Scroll indeed. The current pattern of results seems to better align with the findings typically associated with salient distractor suppression, e.g. Ferranti et al. 2018, One et al. 2020, Coco even more intriguingly in an exploratory analysis. They found that the people who were really good at suppressing these reward location distractors were also the people who showed less of a benefit from having the target in the high reward location. Scroll participants showing a large reward-related suppression of irrelevant salient distractors, i.e. better target. Discrimination when the salient distractor was at the high compared to low reward location. Opit ZD AJSDD. High values on the x-axis, figure 4, also showed poor target judgments when the targets were presented at the high reward location in the HD, i.e. TGHRHD, TGLHD, TGLHD. Low values on the y-axis of the regression plot. Figure 4 toward CoQ. This correlation hints at a broader mechanism. It suggests that if the brain is already on suppression duty at the high reward location, perhaps because it learned that focusing too much there can be detrimental in certain situations, then it might also downplay any positive signal. Like finding the target there, it's like the brain wants to avoid being captured by the reward signal. Scroll in conclusion, in the current study we provide behavioral evidence for an attentional suppression of reward signals. Contrary to classical findings supporting that attention is biased towards rewarded stimuli locations. Chelazzi et al. 2013. 2014, Pessoa, 2010-2015. Koku, so what does this all mean for us? It fundamentally challenges the idea that reward automatically hijacks our attention. Instead, it suggests our attentional system is much more adaptive and goal-oriented. When a reward is linked to a location, our brain doesn't just blindly go there. It evaluates how that reward signal interacts with the current task and other visual information. If focusing on the reward would hurt performance, or if there are other, more critical tasks happening elsewhere, the brain can actively suppress or gate that reward influence. Scrothis indicates that reward signals are not processed independently of other attention control signals, but instead the effect of reward on attention control is dependent on task-related aspects. Toku, this is super important because it reframes how we think about motivation and focus. It is not just about the carrot you are promised. It is about how that carrot fits into the overall game you are playing. For example, if you are trying to save money but see a sale you can't resist, your brain might be fighting an internal battle between the reward signal and your higher level goal of saving. This study suggests that sometimes the goal-achieving part can win by suppressing the tempting allure of the reward. Scroll overall, our findings support the view according to which the mapping of attentional priorities relies on adaptive processes, not simple signal summation towards optimized and adaptive behaviors. Entakoku now, of course, every study has its limits. This was a controlled laboratory experiment. Real life is messier. Also, the participants didn't know which quadrant was the high reward one until the end, which might have made the reward signal less potent than if they had been explicitly told beforehand. The researchers themselves mentioned that if participants were made more aware of the reward locations, the effect might change. Scrojang et al. 2015 made use of a visual search task similar to the one that we used here. The search items were presented in the 4 screen quadrants, and one quadrant was associated with high rewards. The results indicated that the participants' search performance was similar for targets appearing in the high vs low reward quadrants. As in the current study, in a follow-up experiment, the authors incorporated the reward signal into the task instructions. Specifically, they explicitly indicated to the participants that the reward would be more likely to be given in one of the 4 quadrants, and encouraged them to find which quadrant was the highly rewarded one. Participants who were able to identify the high reward quadrant had increased search performance at that location vs low reward quadrants, while participants who could not report reward spatial biases did not. Coco future research could explore this further by explicitly informing participants about the reward locations and seeing if that changes the suppression effect. It would also be fascinating to see if these gating mechanisms are present in more complex, real-world scenarios, or if they are specific to these controlled visual search tasks. Imagine applying this to addictive behaviors or financial decision-making, where a powerful reward signal needs to be weighed against other factors. Scroll's study is part of a collaborative project, MacBrain, developing a multi-scale account of attentional control as the constraining interface between vision and action. Across species investigation of relevant neural circuits in the human and macaque brain CoQ. So, to wrap up, this research gives us a fantastic glimpse into how our brains are constantly juggling different signals to decide where to point our attention. It shows that reward isn't a simple switch that automatically grabs our focus. Instead, it is an influence that can be managed, suppressed, and integrated with our goals. Our minds are far more sophisticated than just being drawn to the sparkly, rewarding bits. They're constantly adapting to optimize our behavior. What do you think about these findings? Does this gating of rewards strike a chord with your own experiences? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the mind, please give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more fascinating science, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.